You are listening to New Theory Radio. New Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa, I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. It's a unique edition of New Theory Radio. I'm recording right now from the guest room in my house, and yes, me and my family are currently quarantining right now. We are practicing social distancing as a way to flatten the curve when it comes to COVID-19. And what a week this has been. I must say I've never, and I think I could, I'm just going to say what everyone else is feeling, but I don't think anyone has ever seen anything like this before. And it's been an interesting one for sure. And I thought, for me, I do got to commend Saga 960 AM for making the right decision to close down the studio temporarily until this has all been resolved, but also still empowering hosts like myself to still produce content, especially if we have the means to do so at our homes. But it's been an interesting week, I must say. I've been working from home when it comes to my day job, and again, I used to love working from home, but now it's feeling it's not what it used to be. I'll say that. It's good to be closer to my daughter, but it's hard not to be able to socialize and not just amongst friends, but amongst family. And I thought I'd use this episode of New Theory Radio to check in on a few folks from the New Theory alum family and to see how they were doing. So we are going to hear from two close friends of the show, one being my good friend Nataleigh Ballantyne, who is a social media influencer expert, as well as an amazing event specialist, and she runs her own firm agency that does a lot of that, and I know she's been impacted by the events of COVID and just how it's shaped her business. So I check in on her to see how she's doing. I also check in on my good friend Shimmy Coco Puffs, who if you're familiar with Shimmy, he has been on the show quite a lot, but he is an OG YouTuber. He is somebody that produces content on the regular. He's someone that he jokes that he's been quarantining before quarantining was a thing. But Shimmy has a very positive outlook when it comes to what this experience is all about and how you could utilize this experience to try new things. And he's been dabbling in TikTok, so he shares some tips regarding TikTok and as well as some theories as to what content will look like after a COVID-19 world. And then for one of our main interviews on today's show, I'm very honored to be joined by an amazing singer-songwriter. Her name is STORRY. She actually has a new album out called Chapter 3, The Come Up. It's a very awesome and deep conversation. I really enjoyed speaking with STORRY. STORRY originally was supposed to be live in studio with us. She was going to be one of our panelists, and we were going to talk and theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. But we managed to get connected over Skype and still make the interview happen. And I thought it would be nice to learn a bit more about her story, no pun intended, because it is very captivating. And her musical journey is very inspiring, considering a lot of what she's gone through in her life. And then we also talk about the way this quarantine is affecting artists, because I know STORRY is definitely one of those artists that, if you look into what she's been doing in 2020, she was seeing a lot of momentum. She was nominated for a Juno, and then all of a sudden when the quarantine was inflicted onto us, you started to see things like the Junos get canceled. And for an artist like Story, she wasn't really able to have her moment. And, I think for a lot of artists, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to the next paycheck, when it comes to where the next sort of income stream is going to come from. And I think Story's approaching it the right way, and I think she's approaching it similarly to a lot of other artists, as well as some of the mainstream artists that are being creative and using this time to find other ways to connect with their audiences. So we talk about that as well. And joining us now on New Theory Radio, he is our resident photographer and somebody who plays, I would say, a pivotal role when it comes to New Theory Radio each and every week. Sometimes he's a producer, sometimes he is a contributor when it comes to topics, and his presence was definitely missed last week when we were in studio recording last week's episode, but just for safety reasons, we opted not to have him because of just the situation at home. But joining us via Skype is Amit Nanwa, aka my little brother, aka at Colorblind Photography _ Amit. How's it going over there, man?
It was good, man. Chilling, bro. I missed you guys yesterday still. I missed the studio. I missed being there, everyone, but it's all good. I understand the precautions in place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. That's been the story here. And again, spoiler alert if you're not familiar, but Amit and myself, we are brothers. And, I would say this week has been a new normal when it comes to the way we're all interacting with each other. I think you and I are on FaceTime quite a lot, just because we admittedly we miss each other, but also you are a pivotal part regarding what New Theory Radio is. So we've been working obviously on a lot of different things as to how we can go about promoting the show. And actually a couple weeks ago, around this time that we're recording this, we would have been preparing for our first event, Good Vibes, Good People, that we were going to do at Friday Roots in downtown Toronto. But also with everything going on with COVID-19, we had to postpone that. Being somebody who this week you had a job that required you to be at a specific location and just out of the safety of your current situation at home, because you are living with our parents, and our parents are at that age where they could be affected by COVID if not taking the right precautions. You had to obviously stop working temporarily because of this. And also you are a photographer, and a lot of what you do is shoots that take place on streets with different subjects or different people. Yeah, exactly. So how has this past week really changed your life?
It's been tough, man. It's been hard, man. I'm someone who's usually someone who's always used to having a good routine, getting up early, going to work, taking the train, taking the GO train down, or sometimes even the subway. It's tough not being to work. A lot of good people in my work too. I work at a co-working space. Not gonna say where it is, but we have done some pre-recordings there. Yeah, man. So it's been good, man. Just chilling here, make sure the parents are good. They've been good. They've been trying to make sure they're just staying healthy and staying good, man. Just trying to focus on. The sad thing about not being able to take photos and stuff, usually on the weekend, using my time to go out with the homies and shoot some pictures or work with some clients, but won't be doing that for a while now. I guess hopefully this COVID thing ends sooner or later, but hopefully I can do that soon. So I'm just going back, looking at the archives, editing some old photos. So I should be dropping some new photos on my grid probably in the coming weeks or even in this week coming up. But yeah, man, it's been a little tough, but it's good that we still stay connected, and we still are FaceTiming every day with everyone else, even our sister as well, and some of my friends as well too. Just you gotta stay good, man. You just gotta be in that good mindset, right? You don't want to be putting yourself away from people in that sense of I want to stay away, but you also gotta take those proper precautions, right? Not being at least 6 feet away from someone, or just not being in the vicinity, right? Especially if everyone around here, anyone can get it, anyone can catch it. It's good in the sense that we're out here just doing our thing still, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. And even to take the safety precautions even further, thankfully our station's News Talk Saga 960 AM has made the tough decision to temporarily close during this time, but that doesn't mean the content stops. And again, we have a very supportive team out there that's allowing us to still produce these types of programs. And again, I'm thankful for technology that we're, able to do things like Skype interviews and be able to still reach out to different folks and get their thoughts on things that are going on. And what's great about this too is I've never used Skype before to do these shows,
Mm-hmm.
so this is cool to know that this situation, as bad as it is allowing us to think of new things that we could be doing to better our content and to really get it going.
No,
And
exactly, man. Great. It's a great tool to have, right? And it's funny, Skype's been around so long, and just like you fall on it, right? Like I've used it for like some interviews in the past, and also done online courses as well. But like it's a dope. Like it's free too. It's awesome too, right? It's a
yeah,
good thing to have and use, right? And especially if in this situation it works out too, because we can still you can still push out your content. We can still do our content what we need for New Theory Radio, and just in general, just stay connected with anyone else too, right? If like someone across the world want to talk to, we can still talk to them through Skype or even FaceTime, right? Which is awesome with technology nowadays, right? So you're not really alone anymore, right?
yeah, and I've never, funny enough, man, I never used Skype before, so I had no idea. Whenever I would hear about whenever I'd hear about like some of the podcasters I listen to use Skype, or even now in the newsrooms how they do Skype interviews and all that. Like I always thought it was kind of cool, but I never thought about using it for New Theory because we didn't have the luxury of the studio. And like you mentioned, we do sometimes use Soho Innovation Lab
Yeah,
for some of
100%.
our recordings. But this is cool, man. I think what I do like about it too is the fact that I didn't know you can directly record off of Skype. So this actually saves a lot of time too in regards to having to buy or having to use an external software to record it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
one of the things that you and I have been talking about is, despite everyone's current situation, the fact that we are staying indoors, there's been a lot of interesting things that have come up this week. Obviously, music is still playing a big role. When this whole COVID-19 sort of quarantine procedures started to begin last week,
Mm-hmm.
the new Jay Electronica album came
Yeah,
out. Then
definitely.
yesterday, the new Weekend album came out, After
Mm-hmm.
Hours, which I actually had the opportunity to listen to, and I thought it was great.
Yeah,
Um, so how important is it for people like us?
mm-hmm.
Like how important is it for us to stay grounded and to still, consume music and very much find ways to distract ourselves while being on this lockdown? Because I think for a lot of people it can be tough, and it can also be very disheartening when you're watching TV and the stories seem to be getting worse.
Yeah, exactly, man. I 100% agree with you in that sense where you just feel like, I feel like it's just a good way. Music's one good outlet as well, right? People use it a lot. It's a good way to like for your mental health as well to hear some new music, and you can explore even new albums, right? Like The Weeknd came out, G Electronic came out, also like that new what's it called again? Janae Ankle came out. There's so much good content coming out still, right? And also like I recently went back to another album, just being on quarantine, just being like I have a little sense of being bored too, right? But just being able to like I went back to the Sampa album, the Process, his first album, Process. Amazing, man. Great work, man. Just since I feel like you just really get a chance to really explore something and take your head away from all this negative news and just to put yourself in a different outlook and different feel, right? You don't want to always be trapped in here. Oh, this happened something new with COVID, the increased number of cases in the Peel region or in Toronto or just in Canada or just like when you hear about Italy, it's just terrifying, man. But it's good to keep your head mindset off it as well, right? Just there's so much good music out there, and I get also you get a chance to explore, right? I know you and me also got a playlist coming out for our previous past guests coming out soon too as well, right?
Yeah, we're again, and that's part of the thing that you and I've been working on this whole week is how do we keep the momentum going? How do we continue to develop new content? And hey, man, it's no secret we've had a lot of amazing artists that have been on New Theory Radio. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we are in the coming days going to be releasing a curated playlist featuring these artists. I have started working on that, and we're gonna get it going and really do our part in promoting a lot of the great talent that have come through our show. Outside of eating, sleeping, binging, working out, what else, is there anything else that you've done this week to kill the time?
Well, I've been just really since just looking at other stuff as well, right? I recently got a new setup, so I got a softbox for photography, working on that, trying to figure out how to use that.
Oh,
Thinking
sick.
about also investing in getting a white backdrop as well and the whole stuff to set it up as well, maybe set it in the basement. Just to explore different things, try different techniques as well. Like I also want to expand myself in video. We had discussion more, just do more video content for a new theory as well. Like, want to expand myself. Been testing some video stuff as well. Just testing new things, man, as well. It's a good opportunity to try new things as well, right? And also, I'm also considering doing some online courses on Udacity as well, or just some photography courses as well. A bunch online as well. So, like, if you have the time, might as well invest yourself and do something, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. That's the spirit. But man, Amit, thanks so much for joining us, man. Again, I hope sooner than later we're back in the studio and we're doing our thing and
Yeah, man.
we're getting those awesome photos that you take.
Thanks,
For our listeners, what's the best way if they want to reach out to you, if they want to connect? Because, even though we're kind of at a standstill right now, I know people are always looking for, future work. I know people are always looking for ways to support other creatives. Feel free to provide your details.
Yeah, 100%, man. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So it's colorblind photography _ on Instagram. I also have a website which is www.colorblind-photography.com. So check those out. Hit me up if you're looking for any pictures. Hopefully we can connect in the future. I know we won't be able to shoot in the next couple of weeks, but hopefully in the summertime for sure. Always looking to willing. Also, you just need someone. Also, you just want to talk about photography or talk about music or anything sense. I'm always open to talk about that as well. Reach out to me. You can also, my personal is also Amit Nanwa as well, so you can reach out to me there as well. Yeah, man. Thanks again for checking out, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amit. And we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM.
New Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM. The show will be theorized on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. It is our special quarantine edition of the show. I see this quarantine edition lasting for the next couple of weeks, but we're going to have some fun and still produce some amazing content. And like I said at the top of the show, we are going to be checking in with some New Theory alum to see how they're handling their current quarantine situation. And I'm very excited to have on Skype on the other line a good friend of mine as well as a good friend of the show. Actually, she was just on the show like a few weeks ago. So I thought it'd be great to bring her back because I know she's been keeping busy while everyone's been quarantining, including herself. It is my good friend, Nataleigh Ballantyne. Nataleigh, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's funny because as I've been working through Skyping my show and talking to different guests, I found it funny that your Skype ID misspells your name. So the first question I have is, were you responsible for setting up your Skype? And when you set it up, did you forget how to spell your name?
Yeah, I feel like I probably just it autocorrects, obviously, because that's the most formal way to spell Nataleigh. I probably just was like, yeah, skip, go, get the account set up. And I just never noticed, to be honest.
I honestly feel like you probably have like ethnic people problems when it comes to the spelling of your name. Because your name is ethnic, I will say that, the way that's spelled.
Well, spelling and pronunciation.
Yeah, I know. I think we talked about in previous episodes how people don't know how to spell your name right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it happens. But how have you been surviving? It's been a crazy week. I think I should have included sort of the top half of our conversation because I think you already answered that for me. But for the sake of this record, let us know how the last sort of couple of days of your quarantine have been going.
So to be honest, I'm okay. I normally work from home. So in terms of being in my home setting, pretty normal. However, also I am an only child. So I'm very used to having to entertain myself and use my imagination and make up things. So also very normal. However, my partner is also working from home now that pretty much every Toronto ad agency and everyone has been sent home to work. So it has been difficult for us to get into a flow of work just based on now we really see how differently our styles are. So I normally he'll get up, he goes to work. I put on the fireplace channel. I put on chill music. I like to vary about atmosphere. And I sit at the table. I can't do work really like on the couch. And he's the opposite. He can sit on the couch. He likes TV noise in the background, which that drives me crazy. So my noise canceling headphones and I have been closer than normal for the past week. But other than that, like I have a dog, which is really turns out to be a very lucky thing. She's always wonderful, but it's really great to have her right now because we're able to kind of go on longer walks than normal and get outside and get some fresh air. Unfortunately, fortunately, not fortunately, we were actually training, LOL, for the Toronto Marathon because it happens to be just before Tyler's birthday and that's what he wanted to do. So we had gotten in a habit of going like every couple of days for a run, and it got canceled, obviously. But we've tried to kind of continue like getting outside for short runs just to break up the day. Because you realize now when you work from home, this is not a standard work from home situation. So, there's all these threads on Twitter about, how to be productive and, what you should do for work from home and how to do all this stuff. And I just need everyone to understand that this is not, you're not normally working home in a pandemic, first of all. You're able to leave to go to gym classes. You're able to socialize in different ways. And especially for people with children, their kids are not normally home crawling all over them at all times,
It's a crazy time. Like that's how everyone's describing it as number one. They're either describing it as a crazy time or as a trying time.
Yeah. And it is very interesting because again, like I said earlier, like this is not a normal work from home scenario. However, I think it is really eye-opening for a lot of people, a lot of executives, a lot of companies to see, how quickly they could adapt to working from home. First of all, like if that's not a normal policy for their workplace, in a week they had to understand how to set up Zoom on everyone, how to get everyone online, how to get all their files online, and they probably did. Maybe it's not perfect yet, but I wonder too, with all of the ways we can be connected, how this will affect remote working going forward for some people, because yes, right now it's not great to work from home for sure, especially because everyone wants to get out and they want to do other things. Totally understandable. But for some people, it must be eye-opening to see like, wow, we really could do this meeting on Zoom and we really can store all of our documents in the cloud, and we really can have signatures put onto documents. So, we really are a society that's kind of set up for this, not in a pandemic kind of way, but I do find it interesting, like education as well, like how will this time really shift systems? Because I don't think we're going to come out the same, right? And we shouldn't. Like the medical industry is definitely going to be impacted by this, and how we test and how much we're prepared for and what we really need to be doing to. I have no idea about infections or viruses, so I don't know how you catch them or any of this, but somebody now knows how to make a plan, I guess, and how offices are going to work and how school's going to work. Because I mean, not that I think online classes are definitely for everyone, and on a sad kind of note about this, and even for women, but a lot of kids, school's kind of like a safer zone than at home. So it's kind of hard for me to think about like all those kids who have to be home with parents who like don't normally treat them so well, I guess. And then how that's going to affect them when comes September. Because I agree, like if we're going to keep school closed till April, well, we're going to send them back for a month. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. Nataleigh, like just to refresh our listeners, you're obviously an entrepreneur. You specialize in many different things, social media, influencers, as well as event production. This obviously threw a big wrench into a lot of your work as an entrepreneur. Do you want to maybe elaborate on just some of the challenges you've been facing? Obviously, we were talking about this even before we started recording about how typically you're used to kind of working from home based on, the fact that you are an entrepreneur and you kind of work wherever it's best for you. But then again, it sounds like this has sort of affected, opportunities for you as well as potential income streams. And how have you gone about dealing with it?
For sure. It's definitely taken a toll. There's no I can be pretty positive spirit about it. But so yes, my main business focuses are social media for other companies, events, and that's like on-site planning them, as well as the digital piece and influencer. And so for the events portion, we were planning a national charity gala for a really amazing organization. And, they were really trying. They were pushing every week. We were having daily meetings this is again, like before last week, talking about we're going ahead with it. We're going ahead with it. But then, as we said earlier, as soon as all the other events got canceled, or postponed, they couldn't be this small national organization keeping this one event going. And then, of course, once other businesses started to close and more formal announcements from the mayor or the premier and prime minister came out, we canceled the event. So it's postponed until later date, but there's no date. But for me, that means like my contract it's still in place, but I don't get paid now until it comes back, and who knows when that will be, So luckily for me, I try my best to keep a lot of my contracts like 50% up front, 50% at the end. Not for any reason in terms of a pandemic. Let me get that straight. Like, once this happened, I really had to think about, oh my gosh, I need to reword my contracts, because there's nothing about something like this happening. But so the event is postponed, who knows? And then just the week before, I was just about to sign 2 really amazing clients, taking them on to do their social media strategy, helping them with content. We're planning live production videos. And unfortunately, they have brick and mortar studios. So one of them's like a national dance program. They have studios. You have to physically go to the class and take this class. So, that's now postponed because the studios are obviously closed. I'm still working with them in terms of helping them get their business online, and they're starting to do a lot more live IG classes, just like everybody else. Get them on TikTok, and like still trying to provide value, because as much as it is a crazy crisis time, it is also a time of opportunity.
Yeah.
A time for people to innovate and kind of pivot their business model and make certain changes. So, I'm not leaving anybody hanging, and I understand, the uncertainty. I do a lot of social media, so people are very nervous, especially at the beginning, like, what are we supposed to be putting out, or what can we put out? And in terms of my influencer business side, we had to put pretty much 90% of the campaigns on hold, because it didn't feel right to put out that content that's like promoting a brand or a recent, like, really amazing press trip that what some of our influencers went to. It's like, now just doesn't feel like the time, aside from the fact that either they would get really terrible comments or the engagement would be low because no one's really investing in that kind of content. So on all 3 pillars of my business, I've been like heavily affected, but at the same time, I'm really trying to offer other ways to kind of help businesses understand and navigate like a virtual way to keep their content going, and as well as really trying my best to help people. And again, this is such a personal thing for businesses, like posting what they feel is appropriate at this time. There's no right or wrong, obviously. And the thing is, and I know this is a very particular moment in time, but hopefully and eventually, and in an optimistic way, we will have to kind of, if this is how we're going to be for the next couple of weeks, couple of months, we do have to get back to business in some sort of normal way. Like, we do have to start selling, or people do need to start figuring out what they're doing. Like, I have a few friends who own gyms in Toronto. This is a huge impact on their business, right? Like, you have to keep memberships going in order to keep the lights on. Even if mortgages or rents are deferred, that doesn't mean they don't have to pay them. They still need to be making the money. So it's an interesting time to kind of come together as a business community and figure out other alternative ways to A, promote your business, and B, find other streams of income, because I still have to eat and pay my rent. Like, I'm not safe, So
Yeah, and that's the one thing I really admired about you this week is, and you being one of the prominent ones kind of in my network, but just even a lot of everyone is trying to still make things work. And again, whether you're an artist that's maybe now focusing more on merch strategies, or whether you're, you know, an entrepreneur like yourself that focuses on social strategy and realize, hey, a lot of what I do can be done outside of an in-person meeting. Like, I think it's important to still push through and continue with that. I guess the last thing, just to kind of keep up with our show theme or our show title of New Theory Radio, what is your theory on the impact this will have on, actually not just the impact, because the impact I think is pretty self-explanatory in the short term when it comes to profits and just the way businesses are operating. But what's your theory on how small businesses will be different coming out of this crisis?
Well, I think a lot of them will be really screwed, to be honest, if they could come out of it. It's going to be very hard for, if we keep closed, if small businesses have to stay closed for 3 months, I don't know how they come out of it. And if they do, it's because they really had an innovative way of thinking about what their service was and how they can re-offer it. So I think for a lot of businesses, you know, last week you can't, I don't even think you can count last week as a real week. Like, everyone would have just been in some sort of like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what are we even doing?
Oh yeah. I feel like the first real week begins on Monday, to be honest.
Like, exactly. It's like last week was just like, no one has any clue of what's happening. And now Monday, you know, we try again. And I think for small businesses, they either find a way to really figure out how their services can be applied in different ways. But also, I think as consumers, we might care a lot more about local small businesses. Like, we always talk about, we try our best to promote small businesses and support them, but obviously there are places that, you know, things are just cheaper, or it's more convenient, or it's closer. I mean, I guess that's convenience, but it might have an impact on us as consumers to be like, no, we're making the effort to keep these places alive, because it was really, really hard to see a lot of people go or struggle, and there's just nothing you can do about it. You know, again, like when I was on that call with a few other bosses, you know, they're talking about layoffs, and it's a lot of people. You know, like what could come in the next little bit is a lot of layoffs, and it's terrifying, and how the economy is going to boost back. And we can't just rely, like, the government's going to obviously do what they can, but we can't, there has to be something really strong that comes out of this. And whether that's just innovation or a real community time to come together and figure out how we're going to pull everyone up as a team and how we're all going to get out of this together.
No, I like the way you put that too, and I think that's the mentality that needs to be taken, is that we all are truly in this together, despite what people do for a living or the types of industries that they work in or what they're currently doing in their lives. I think this is the first time where, you know, you're really starting to feel like everybody around you, whether you know them or you're not, is dealing with the exact same thing, and we almost have to be in it together to stay sane and be able to push through. So, Nataleigh, I do appreciate you spending some time with us here on New Theory Radio. I wish for better circumstances, but regardless, you know, you always have our support. You know, keep pushing along, because you are doing amazing work. If anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact? Nataleigh Ballantyne?
Definitely, you can look on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and don't forget it's Nataleigh.
I'm glad you clarified that, because your Skype isn't doing you any favors.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. Are you like, again, kind of heading into the next couple of days? Like, do you have any idea of anything else that you're going to be working on or going to try to undertake that you want to let the listeners know about? Or
Well, to be honest, I didn't just do this while we have been in lockdown. I've recorded 8 episodes of a podcast, so that's coming out. And then definitely online training. Like, I'm just trying to build courses together so that people can get the services that they need. If it's about Instagram, growing your Instagram, doing social selling, your online business, I'm trying to build out courses to make it easier for people to kind of adapt to online without having to hire a person full time. So that's what I'm working on while I have not a lot of contracts I can really go forward right now.
And you know what? That seems to be the case for everyone. Is if you are a side hustler or someone who is an entrepreneur, you're almost now have the time to get through that list that you were never able to get through because of just how crazy busy everybody was. So, no, I think right now is a good time to reset, reflect. That's been my theme of the week, and to really be able to do some of those things that you always wanted to do. And that's what we're doing even on New Theory Radio when it comes to some of the things that we're looking into. And yeah, we'll continue to hold hands together and make this happen. But thanks so much for, sorry, 1 second. Oh, sorry, my headphones came off. I gotta redo that again. Well, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio, and we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here on News Talk Saga 960 AM.
The New Theory Radio.
And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host. And this is the show we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And again, it is our special quarantined episode of New Theory Radio. So I wanted to use this time to check in on some of our New Theory alum and see what they've been up to since the quarantine started. And I thought, who better but our very own Shimmy Coco Puffs, who... Shimmy, I feel like you're living the life right now in your bedroom.
Well, the thing is, I realize my lifestyle matches the quarantine kind of lifestyle perfectly. I love staying
quarantining,
indoors.
man.
Yeah, exactly. I love staying indoors. I love just keeping to myself and creating content. So this is a content creator's dream if you're antisocial. So, I mean, I'm enjoying it, in that sense.
Yeah, well, you know what? The one thing I'll say about what you've been doing this week is I think you've been doing a fantastic job, not only creating more content with the time that we have, but also being very informative. Like, I've noticed a lot of your posts have been very much around, personal hygiene and telling people to wash their hands, right. Be wary of social distancing. But then also I noticed, like, I think it was either yesterday or even today, you actually, you've been doing a fantastic job really engaging with your community around some of the stigma that might be associated with COVID-19 or the coronavirus, and how, a few people, when it comes to our neighbors down south in the U.S., have been referring to it as the Chinese virus. So I think you've done a fantastic job in calling that out and make sure a lot of that gets nipped in the butt. But how important has it been for you as a consistent content creator to play that role, knowing that, hey, a lot of my followers are probably sitting at home, confused, not sure what to do, stressed out, working from home, not sure when to turn that off? Like, do you feel like there's an onus on you to be more informative, but to still maintain a level of entertainment?
Absolutely. So through my YouTube career, it was essentially just about entertaining people, just laughs here and there, pure form of entertainment. But now, as we're literally living through a pandemic, I feel because I have a platform and a voice for people who may not necessarily have a voice, this is the perfect opportunity to try and do the best I can in this world. And honestly, it's a little saddening to see people with a following or who have a voice to not be taking this situation seriously, and to be making and to be making jokes out of it. And I totally understand that you need humor to lighten up how the moods are, but there's a certain extent where you should be having some kind of platform where you can help out others, because I genuinely believe people are panicking over this. And like, for people who are up to like 50, 60 years old, some of them have not even lived through a pandemic,
Oh, totally,
man. Yeah, so this is relatively new for us. And for our age group, For example, there are spring breakers who are still partying right now, like as we're
I
speaking.
do not get it, man. I don't get it at all.
and it's because I don't think the reality has set in for them, because this is all surreal. How do we like really understand that a pandemic is going on without you getting the COVID-19 yourself? You know, until you get it, you won't really understand fully to the extent of what we're going through, right? So having a platform and a voice and literally reading people talking about their expressions of saying how worried they are, how they're panicking, I felt like I had, you know, the what you mentioned earlier, to stand up and do something about this. And I think being informative is the number one important thing. There are a lot of people who are completely ignoring the news, that are completely ignoring information because they just want to be ignorant towards it, because they don't want to believe like this is going on. And I totally get it, because like I said, it's a pandemic. So right now, humanity is being tested into so many different lengths, you know,
totally, man.
Whether it's like moral, ethic, you know, economically, socially, there's a lot of things going on that are being tested. And it's really tough, because I feel when you're living in a constant state of fear, you're actually not performing the best you can as a person. So if I can use my platform to just lighten up the mood, still be informative, and to just build up the community still and just be lighthearted, why wouldn't I do that? You know, and I don't want to take advantage of people. Like this is the time for us to really get along and be more compassionate, because then we'll get through this even sooner, you know?
Yeah, and I'm glad you put it that way, man, because I think this is, for as long as I remember, this is the one sort of issue that everybody is dealing with, no matter what your, you know, class level is, no matter if you're an influencer, celebrity, or just an everyday person.
Right.
Like, this is being felt across the board. And the one thing I've really enjoyed, and you're definitely in that same pool of individuals, is people like yourself using your platform as an educational tool. And I think that's where I've seen a lot of enjoyment, is, you know, seeing people like Nick Nurse, the coach of the Toronto Raptors, you know, spread messaging around the importance of washing your hands and being able to stay safe and practice social distancing, and you know, doing it in a way that's very Nick Nurse and very coachable in regards to his style as to who he is as a human being, but doing it in a way that shows the severity of the situation. And I think that's been a crucial part of all this, is being able to be authentic, but doing it your own way without necessarily being preachy or being someone that's, you know, beating a dead horse.
Right. Because the thing is, at first, of course, like, we should still stay compassionate, but because people are not taking the situation seriously, I'm all up for shaming people at this point. Because the thing is, like, literally, actually, for example, the Ministry of Health recently uploaded some content discussing this isn't something where it's just going to be 2 weeks of social distancing if people don't take this seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
It could literally be up to months, because people are not doing their due diligence on how serious this is. And unfortunately, if we are to keep pushing those boundaries and keeping the laws very loose, the government is going to have to start cracking down, and they're going to have to enforce potentially like maybe curfews, you know, or they're going to have to shut down like essential services if we don't like get it together, you know? So it's extremely sensitive times. Like, I feel even before the US presidential elections, this is even testing humanity further with what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, you know?
Totally.
So we're in a really difficult situation where people are going to be, and they are strongly opinionated. But I do feel, because we're all starting to feel the pressure of staying quarantined, that, you know what, this is a much more serious situation than we thought. And it's not just about us. Because at first, when this situation was first starting coming to light in Canada, even, whenever I was going through my Instagram content or stories, I was literally still witnessing people out partying.
Dude, even last week, St. Paddy's Day weekend, like, there's people in my close network that went out.
Exactly. And it's difficult because they are in your network. They are your friends and family. These aren't just random people. And what would happen to your potential relationship or rapport with them if you were to call them out?
It's crazy, man. But I feel like you and I could touch on this for a majority of it. But I do want to talk, flip this to a bit of a positive. So you
Absolutely.
lately, yeah, and I think you and I are both very positive people.
It's hard to not talk about though directly,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's what we're constantly seeing in the news. So it's difficult times in that sense. Sorry, yeah, as you were saying though.
No, but the one thing I'll say about you, Shimmy, is you obviously, when you started your career as a content creator, it was you were one of the first OG YouTubers, and then you did take a break. Now you're coming back into it. Notice like your Instagram's been popping off. But I would say in the last few weeks, you've been doing some awesome work on TikTok, and even just with the stories that you've been sharing, it looks like your TikTok trajectory is actually increasing quite a bit as well. And the one thing I've also kind of seen with some of your content this week is just really encouraging people to try new things. And I feel like TikTok is the prettiest girl at the moment when it comes to social media. Everyone's trying to jump on it, but man, like I've been seeing people again in my close network that because of sheer boredom of being at home, they are dabbling in TikTok and making some pretty cool content. So I guess like what I'm going to try to ask you here is do you think right now if you have any sense of creativity kind of in your body, is right now in your point of view the best time to exercise that?
So specifically talking in terms of being creative, absolutely. Like we're all stuck indoors, and this is a true game of discipline and willpower and mental exercise. If you're going to be constantly thinking about what's going on, you're not necessarily going to be productive. So because I've developed this willpower and discipline to think how I want to think, especially more lately, this is the time to be pushing out content. Why? Because the demographics right now, it's everyone. We're all stuck indoors. Like this is literally the perfect opportunity. Like people are on their phones, people are on their electronics. We have nothing better to do. So as a content creator, now is literally the perfect time. And for example, as you were mentioning earlier, TikTok, yeah, absolutely. Like TikTok has been extremely, extremely interesting. Because the thing is, I feel anytime a new social media platform comes out, we always look at it in the lens scope of a previous social media platform. So for example, so for example, like how how like the Instagram or Facebook algorithm works, you would automatically think to apply that same knowledge to TikTok. But straight up, after being on a month with TikTok, that's actually super incorrect, because the TikTok algorithm is completely different from Instagram. Wow. For example, Instagram's algorithm, you are served, your content is served to only your followers, unless you get onto the Explore page, unless people share the content, or you utilize hashtags to get that organic reach. But the thing is, with TikTok, you're actually served to an audience that doesn't know you. So that is literally the perfect opportunity why you should be on TikTok, because TikTok gives you the opportunity by giving you an audience. And if your content performs well, TikTok's algorithm keeps serving you to a larger and a larger audience. So the thing is, no other platform actually does that at this moment, right? Wow. So the thing with TikTok I've noticed is the algorithm is not only that different, the way that you capture like the retention and your view count and engagement is also completely different. So when you upload something on Instagram, you usually get your engagement within the first 24 hours and essentially the piece dies off, right? Yeah. But on TikTok, for example, I uploaded something 3 weeks ago and it peaked at maybe 1,000 views the first day. And I was like, man, this is popping off. Okay, 1,000 views. I'm happy. Let's think of the next piece of content. But in the past 3 weeks, it actually climbed to 75,000 views. Wow. Which makes no sense. It makes no sense. If you upload something on Instagram, would you expect to get a huge engagement rate 3 weeks later? Absolutely not. It's because we're too used to the algorithm of how Instagram is, because the Instagram platform has been the biggest key player in the social media world. So we're just really stuck and honed in on how that algorithm works. But how Instagram works is if you get further engagement, it'll keep serving it to another audience. So as you develop your following, each time you get a new follower, they check out your content, they like and comment a piece of video, it'll get resurfed to another audience set.
That's sweet, man.
Right. So that's the reason why on TikTok it's relatively easy to grow really big and exponentially do it, because that 75,000 viewed video I have right now is still picking up in views as well. But then so are other pieces of content. So altogether, like in a cumulative perspective, that's why you have exponential growth, if that makes sense, right? Because on Instagram, you upload that piece of content, you get your most engagement, it dies. You got to wait until you upload another piece of content until you see traction again. But on TikTok, the traction can pick up at any point in that perspective.
Well, and that's a good segue, because, you know, we love to theorize here on New Theory Radio. What's your theory on how the content game is going to change coming out of this?
Oh, goodness. So during this, even before, after this, during this, I feel like it's already changed. Because right now, competition is on the high. And why I say that is because as soon as quarantine came into play, I'm not going to lie, I was like, yes, more time for TikTok. Yes. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, no, wait. All the kids from school are going to be home too. No, they're going to be creating content as well. The competition is high, you know? So right now, competition is going to be high too, because we all have time. But back to your question on how the content game is going to change. I really think even before this, the trend of authenticity is on the rise. You know, we don't want bullshit. We don't want the superficialness. We don't want the lies. Like, we want the raw truth. We want to see the journey of what it takes to be successful. We don't want to see the end game of success. We want to see what the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to get to success. You know, and at a time like this, where if you're going to truly be authentic with anyone and your audience, people can really see right through that. You know, being marketers ourselves, you obviously know when a sponsored project is a sponsored project. You obviously know when an advertisement is an advertisement. And that's the same thing for when you view influencers now, whether they're being authentic or whether they're being true or whether they're just being fake or superficial, you know? So I feel like at times like this, because everyone is kind of on a different kind of wavelength of being cautious and a different level of compassion now, this is the time to be authentic, because after all of this blows over, people will see you in that perspective of how you were during this time we're living right now.
Exactly. Yeah, people won't forget, man. Like, I think a lot of what's happening now, and I know you alluded to this earlier, how in the U.S. it's an election year. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are not going to forget the actions of certain people during this time. And I think it's going to carry over into, you know, this post-pandemic, right? And I think that's a crucial one. I'm glad you touched on that. Like, authenticity, I think right now is at an all-time high. And, you know, it's just refreshing to see how the role of the influencer or celebrity has changed. Like, I think right now, there is a lot being done to call out even celebrities or influencers that aren't authentic. And I know you touched on it earlier, but then there's also a lot of appreciation to those individuals that are, you know, coming across authentic and doing their part to make this somewhat enjoyable for their fans or their followers. So, you know, you got to give them your props. But dude, this was a lot of fun, man. I'm glad that you're keeping well. I'm glad that we were able to chat. I'm loving the mustache. That's why I decided to make this a video so we can showcase that.
I'm gonna get it more thicker than yours, bro. Just give me like a year or so.
Dude, I feel like you're gonna get the Stevie Aoki. Just the picture, man. Dude,
it's looking there. It's getting there. It's getting there.
Man, as always, I'm sure we don't have to do this, but, you know, let's do it anyways. Like, how can the listeners, you know, reach you? Obviously, you're coming out with some cool stuff. I was gonna swear. You're coming up with some cool stuff each and every day. You're really keeping your community entertained, but you're doing a great job engaging them. But if anybody wants to connect with Shimmy, what's the best way?
Really appreciate that, Nav. So you can connect with me mainly on Instagram, TikTok right now. If you look up Shimmy Coco Puff or Shimmy Coco Puffs, ShimmyCocoPuff with one S or maybe no S, you'll find me almost on any platform, pushing out content where I'm keeping it real. Like, we're all on quarantine, so I'm utilizing that in the sense where I'm not going to lie about it, but at the same time, I'm trying to bring compassion, trying to bring some good into this world at times like this. And not just that, as a content creator, don't feel necessarily having the pressure to only talk about what's going on, because some of us just want to live a normal life. So if you're just out there entertaining, that's okay too.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate it as always. And
Thank you as well, bro.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to all this coming to an end so we can bring you back into the studio. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we'll bring Essa back too. How's Essa doing?
Yeah, he's just creating content too, man. I think all the content creators are taking this opportunity to push out content out there. But at the same time, even before creating content, it's a mental game, right?
It is, man. Totally. But Shimmy, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick commercial break here on New Theory Radio, and we'll be right back on News Talk Saga 960.
You are listening to New Theory Radio.
We are back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And if you're just tuning in, you just heard the sounds of my next guest. It is her current single entitled Money Ain't Free from her album Chapter 3, The Come Up. She is a phenomenal artist, someone who has many different influences. Actually, when I listened to her album, I really dug just the different styles of music that this artist represents. And you can just tell the different genres that influence her. I'm talking things like hip hop, R&B, reggae, gospel, you name it. She's doing it all. And her new album, Chapter 3, is very important because it's about a woman. It's about a woman who's trying to leave the sex industry to get into the music industry, only to discover that both are equally misogynistic and problematic. And it's quite the journey when you think about just a lot of her challenges, which include, grappling the relationship with her mother/family, various romantic relationships, her careers, her dreams, and at the end of the day, just trying to find a way to make it work when it comes to making money for a living. And I'm very honored to have her on the show. It's under interesting circumstances as we are both currently quarantined in our specific residences. But yes, I would like to welcome Story here on New Theory Radio. Story, how's it going?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Nav.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm former guest on New Theory Radio and a good friend of the show, Ola Mazuka, actually brought you up to me, and I was very intrigued by your story, no pun intended. I think that's going to come up a lot during this interview. But I really love the fact that when it comes to who you are as an artist, how you truly live your truth. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays, living your truth has become quite the buzz term, I would say, for a lot of people. It's like, I'm going to start living my truth. And that means like, I'm going to stop shaving my face. But I think the way you go about it is truly authentic, because the journey that you've had in your life is very fascinating. And the fact that you've now been able to craft that into your music, and not only craft it in a way that's very appealing and thought-provoking, but in a way that's getting recognition, because you were recently nominated for a Juno. It was something that really attracted me to just the product that you're putting out when it comes to your music. So just to start things off, Story, what is your story?
I have many stories. I always joke that if I was to live a boring life from this day forward, I would still have enough stories to tell every single day for the rest of my life. But in a nutshell, I would say that I, got coerced into the sex industry by my ex-boyfriend slash pimp and had all my money taken from me. I was in a very abusive relationship, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. And I managed to get out of that situation. When we separated, he took all my music, all my hard drives, everything. So I didn't actually want to do music anymore. I went to India for 3 months to study yoga, and I couch surfed across India as well. And I just prayed in every temple, every, mosque, church, whatever. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I do believe in a universal consciousness. And I just asked the universe to guide me in the direction that it needed me the most. And inevitably that pointed me back to music.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had somebody in specific who had gone to my yoga teacher training with me. And he said to me, you don't just have a voice. He pointed to my temple. He said, you have a voice and you have people that you need to impact. So please go back to Canada and lock yourself in a room and do all your art, paint, sing, write. And if after 1 year it doesn't go anywhere, then by all means, you can come back to India and volunteer all you like, because I had wanted to stay in India indefinitely to volunteer. And
whereabouts in India?
In Dharavi, in the slums in Mumbai.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And he said, but please leave this volunteering to us normal people. You're not normal, And I really heeded that. So I came back to Canada and I got in contact with my co-writer and co-producer of this entire album, Tom. His real name is Yotam Baum, but I call him Tom. And we worked together and we recatalogued over 100 songs together in the past about 4 or 5 years. And then as I was looking for producers and people to work with me over the years, was having a very hard time, 1, being taken seriously, 2, not being sexualized by these people, and 3, not having the funding or the accolades that other people who were in the industry and maybe not would not have been as great of singers or writers, but had been out in the world. At least I had been living under a rock. So I decided to produce chapter 3, The Come Up, on my own. And and that's what I did. And so that happened January of 2019. I got in the studio for 3 days because that's all I could afford. And I hired musicians and I went in and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I just said, I'm going to fake it till I make it. So I'm just going to go into that studio and suspend disbelief for a little bit and just believe that I can do this and produce this album. And and I did it.
Wow, that's an interesting story, because the one thing I'll say is it sounds like you found somewhat of a mentor. Is that safe to say, that really allowed you to find your purpose again? Because the one thing I realized, if I can just think about other stories that I've heard from other artists, or even just what I've experienced, sometimes when you hit that emotional wall where you just don't know where to go, it does take someone to kind of just enter into your life to really allow you to see things clearly. And I find it interesting that you were able to find that in the slums of India, because I think you hear about these spiritual retreats that take place, and some of them are borderline glamping to an extreme, but it sounds like you really immersed yourself into the culture. And from there, you were able to take something back with you to Canada when it came to putting together your music.
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't say that there was a particular mentor. I really believe in life in a way where every single action that we make has a huge impact on the world. So it's like a butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
I'm particularly aware of that. And so my mother says I take life a little too seriously because of that, because I'm always like, but if I leave my house even a second later, like I'm going to change the trajectory of the human race forever,
Oh,
But
I'm always like that. Like I always think about in an alternate universe, if I made a different decision, where would I be?
yeah, exactly. And so this guy that I said, said that to me. It wasn't like there wasn't other omens and other people saying these things to me. It was just that at that particular moment, um, it just was a very clear thing. And after all these other things had presented themselves, it was kind of that turning point for me. So I tell that story a lot, but there's a lot of other people in my life who also, interjected and helped push me in a certain direction. And I would also say that, Tom, he was one of my best friends in high school, and we hadn't seen each other during that time that I was being abused. When you're abused, your abuser generally separates you from all your friends and your family, and you don't get to see them that often or if at all. So I hadn't seen him in many years. He had also moved to England, and he had just moved back like a few years after. And so then when I reconnected with him, he was one of those people that just instilled a lot of esteem in me, because I had very low self-esteem at the time. And my ex was, he told me I wasn't a good singer, I wasn't a good writer. He didn't let me perform. He didn't let, you know what I mean? So it was very great to have somebody who was constantly there and telling me that I was great at what I did, even when I didn't believe it.
I just love the fact that you were able to get out of a situation like that, because there are a lot of situations where people being abused can't escape. And again, not to use this as an example, but I think of some of the stories and perspectives I heard during when the R. Kelly situation blew up, and that's when, even for someone like me who's not that, who before that kind of blew up in the mainstream and not too familiar with a lot of these situations, to actually see the psychological effects of some of these victims and just how their abuser does control a lot of what they do. I'm just super grateful that someone like yourself was able to get out of that, because the record that you put out is beautiful. Like I managed to listen to it, and I shudder to think not being able to listen to it. And I love the fact that your journey kind of led you to rediscover what you're good at.
Thank you. Well, yeah, so I think a lot of people don't really understand abuse, especially if they've never been in an abusive relationship. And I remember as a kid, like I watched people that I loved be abused. And I remember thinking, like, I would give them advice and tell them to leave, and they wouldn't, and I wouldn't understand. And then when I, was growing up in my teens, I was like, oh, that'll never happen to me. I'll never let a man hit me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get into a situation and you're like, how did I let this, and this is the terrible way of thinking about it, how did I let this happen to me? And it's very victim blaming, right? And so a lot of people will say that to me. They'd be like, but you were so smart and you were so strong and you would always give other people advice. How did you let this happen to you? How did this happen to you? And it's very interesting. And honestly, I was in a point where I had a lot of guilt and shame and regret. And I think that guilt and shame and regret, if I didn't have as much of it, if I didn't feel like it was my fault, that I was somehow damaged goods now, that my family would disown me or whatever these beliefs in my head were, then I think I would have gotten out of that situation a lot faster. But because I didn't believe that, and I was in this fear-based place, like that I'm not worthy of, anything better, that I didn't get out of it as quickly as I could have. And I could have spared myself a lot of years and a lot of pain. So when I went to India, I also took a 2-week trip to Thailand as well. And I went to this elephant nature park. So it's a place where they rehabilitate elephants that have been in logging or, for tourists to ride and stuff like that. And they like rehabilitate them to go back into nature or whatever. So one of the elephants, she had been in logging and she got pregnant, and they had her continue to work as she was pregnant. And one day she fell down a hill and she lost her baby, and she didn't want to work anymore. So she was very depressed. And so the owners started beating her and they stopped feeding her, and finally they gouged out her eyes until she was blind. And they left her on the side of the road. And the lady who owns this elephant nature park found the elephant and she rehabilitated her. And you'll see in the nature park that there's one of the other elephants, so they don't train the elephants there. They don't force them to do anything. They're literally free, okay? But this other elephant basically paired with the blind elephant and is her eyes and basically walks everywhere with her. It's so beautiful. So I'm watching these animals all day and I'm seeing how smart they are and how, their faces just lit up. And in comparison to when I've seen elephants in, those places where you ride them in like zoos and stuff like that, they look kind of sad,
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these elephants, and then afterwards, after interacting with them for the whole day, we go and we watch this documentary on how they're conditioned. And basically what happens is they put the elephants inside. So they capture an elephant from the wild and they put it inside of a crate. And it's this like wooden crate that's so small that the elephant can't even sit. Like it just has to stand there. It can't move at all. And they beat it and they yell at it and they don't give it water. They don't give it food. And every elephant is different. Some of them, they give in sooner than later, but inevitably all of them break. And they call this spirit breaking. And once their spirit is broken, they take them out of the crate and they start to train the elephant. Now, they say that, so if you see an elephant in captivity, you'll notice that often they only have like one chain on one of their legs. And you're like, well, they're huge. They could totally just break the chain, right? Mm-hmm. But they say that an elephant, if it was to be in a circus tent and the tent was on fire, it wouldn't break the chain to save its own life. Why? Because it doesn't know its own strength anymore. And when I watched that, a light bulb went up in my head and I started to cry. And I realized that that's what had happened to me. And that's what abuse is. So when people ask me what abuse is, and if they don't really understand it, I tell them this story because, we're elephants and we are told that we're mice, and we believe it. And we start to operate like we're mice, but really we're elephants. And when we discover our true spirit again, that's when we can, be free. But until then, it's very difficult. And so we can't blame the victims of abuse. And so now I have elephants all over. Like I have an elephant on my dashboard. I have an elephant on my rearview mirror.
I love that.
Yeah.
So your new album, Chapter 3, The Come Up, I heard in an interview that you said that you call the album Chapter 3, The Come Up, but you wished you had released this album first. Why was that?
No, I did release this album first. What do you mean? Like?
Oh, sorry. In an interview, I think you did with the Canadian Press, you had talked about, you called this album Chapter 3, The Come Up, but... Or maybe can you elaborate why Chapter 3 if it's your first album?
Yes. So Chapter 3, I wrote actually Chapter 1 and Chapter 2.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Chapter 3. It's like different phases in my life. And Chapter 3 was where I am currently. It was, me having one foot in the sex industry and one foot in the music industry and trying to figure out where I land, and that was why I wanted to put that out, because it just felt like the most authentic place to start.
Yeah.
I put out music maybe 3 years ago when I was writing Chapter 1, then it would have been cool to put out chapter 1 first because I was going through those emotions, but also I would like chapter 1 and chapter 2 to be the soundtrack for a feature-length film. So
Gotcha.
I have that idea, and I definitely don't have the resources to pull that off currently. So I'm hoping that, you know, chapter 3 and maybe my next album will help me be able to make that dream a possibility in the future.
It's clever how you thought about this though, because it's very representative of what you're facing now, like similar to what you had mentioned, and I like that you're kind of looking at your life in different chapters, because I find that we do get sort of hung up on the now sometimes, that we kind of forget where we came from. And I'm glad that you're somewhat, with the way you've titled this album, you're still acknowledging that, hey, there is a chapter 1 and 2, but that will be told at a later time. Like right now, chapter 3 is what I'm currently dealing with, being somebody who was in the sex industry, but now trying to get into the music industry, but noticing some similarities. And that's probably the next point that I want to talk to is how has your journey been in the music industry? Because it is definitely apparent in your music that there has been some challenges, even when you read about what chapter 3, the come up, is all about. It's no secret that there are some misogynistic sort of problematic issues that are taking place in the music industry. We actually talked about a few weeks ago when we did our International Women's Day episode about how a lot of artists sometimes don't realize that they're being victims of misogyny, or when execs are being sexist, or are being taken advantage of until later in their careers. So how have you been able to navigate that journey based on your background?
Well, I've had a very difficult time navigating it, and I've cried a lot about it. It's not been an easy road, and I think it's been even harder just based on the fact that I was a dancer, and that people would kind of fetishize me in a way. So there's so many different varying degrees that yes, sometimes it may seem like it's unnoticeable, and other times it's very aggressive, right? Like we have the more aggressive stuff where people are like, asking you to take your top off in a meeting, or like, things like that are just ridiculous, that you're just like, how the hell did that happen? And people like blatantly telling you that they want to F you, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. And then you have these other more subtle things that still affect you, and it's so annoying. And then other people are like, well, it's not that big of a deal. They just really liked you and they were hurt that you didn't want to go out with them. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, but now they can't let me in the studio. They're not going to invite me to this thing that they said that they were going to invite me to.
Oh man, that's horrible.
They're not going to collaborate with me anymore because I don't want to have sex with them, or because I don't want to date them, and their egos are hurt. And it's just like really annoying. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's a 20-year-old boy that you're just like, okay, well, he's young and he doesn't know any better, but still, it still affects me and how I move forward in my career. And just because their ego is hurt because they didn't get what they wanted, and now they're gonna like ostracize you, it's just annoying.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that really bothers me about this industry as well, is it's very easy to especially when you learn about someone's background, to try to use that to your advantage, or even dangle almost that carrot in front of them to be like, hey, you can make it really far if you just do this one little thing. And I think it's something that I find very disgusting when it comes to sort of the arts and culture world. And it's also something, even based on my corporate background, that I've seen in other industries as well. But it's something that I you would hope as time goes on disappears, but it seems like now with the news that we've been seeing, around sexual harassment and even the come up of the Me Too movement over the last few years, that this is as prevalent as it's ever been.
For sure. I mean, people are like, oh, the Me Too movement, things are getting better. I'm like, a tiny bit. Yeah. Like I'm at least perpetrators are getting, generally, like, things are happening. Some people are going to jail and stuff like that, which is, good. But there's a lot more subtlety that's happening, right? And a lot of guys who have a little bit of smarts are like utilizing the words feminist and, women empowerment, and that they're in for women being empowered and whatever, and they use those words, and it has a gaslighting effect on you, because they can often still be perpetuating these misogynistic things and have their own agenda.
Yeah.
They're utilizing this lingo to get in bed with you and then make you think that it was your decision. So it's a very crazy world out there, and I consider myself to be a pretty smart person, and even I sometimes find myself falling into these rabbit holes, and I'm like, what? I'm like, you've been through so much. How did you end up here? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's tough though, because I find that sometimes when you get so focused on an end goal, and for someone like you who's really trying to make it with your music, sometimes it is easy to miss the small things, and you realize, oh man, why did I agree to this? Like, this is totally not what I represent, or this is not something that really sets well with me after kind of thinking about it, hindsight 2020. I think that's easy for anybody. Like, I think that's the common challenge when you are in an industry like the one that you're in, where there is such a desire to progress and be able to kind of get your music heard, that sometimes things bubble up without you even noticing.
Exactly. And so my advice to people would be, one, to make sure you always have a person that is not wrapped up in the money, is not wrapped up in your success, or doesn't care about your fame, cares about you as a person. And make sure that person, you tell them about every single thing that's happening in your days. Because sometimes, we can't see our blind spots, right? And that person will be able to tell you, okay, be careful there. That person said this. I don't really like that. Maybe keep an eye out. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I would say. Two, the thing that really helped me was I just started to work more with females and with men who truly and honestly embodied a feminist viewpoint, and who I knew for a fact were not sexualizing me. And it didn't matter if they were like the most clout or had the biggest resume or whatever, because a lot of these people didn't necessarily have the weight that a lot of the other people that I'd had meetings with had, but they didn't make me feel like a piece of crap. You know what I mean? And that's important. So just like, don't get caught up in the clout. Don't get caught up in what other people's resumes look like. Just work with people who respect you and who respect what you do and who believe in your vision. And it doesn't matter if they don't have a lot of, if they don't have a foot in the industry. Obviously, it would have been a lot easier for me to get this album out in a larger way had I had that. But luckily, the universe gave me a Juno nomination, and that allowed me to get a lot more press than I would have probably if I didn't have that opportunity, because I don't have a marketing budget. I don't have a huge team working behind me. I don't have a manager. I don't have a label, so this Juno nom was really a godsend for me.
New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Did you ever find yourself in a situation? This is a question just out of plain curiosity. Obviously, one common individual that comes up when I kind of think about this is just the journey that Cardi B's had. She's someone that was a stripper back in the day, but now is probably considered the top female MC right now, right? When you think about commercial appeal and just the amount of hits that she's been given. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone looked at your background, looked at everything that you had, and was almost trying to change your narrative or trying to change what your music was about because they felt like it could be marketed a different way. Like, I'm just curious because that's the one thing I've noticed about this industry is it's very easy for someone who maybe does neo soul to be in a marketing meeting with an A&R and all of a sudden they come out and they're making pop tracks, right? Like, have you ever found yourself in a situation where your artistic credibility was being pushed in a different direction?
100%. I mean, my album doesn't really fit onto Spotify playlists, you know, it's all live band music. It's not, you know, what the hip thing is right now. It's not very trendy. And I also am very honest about my experience, and the songs are very personal, and people would often tell me not to be so personal, to make them more vague so that everybody could relate to them easier, you know, because my life was extraordinary and other people can't relate to like such a crazy life. It's too sad. It's too much about, you know, that industry or whatever the case is. And I beg to differ. I think being honest and authentic, people have been relating to it in so many ways, and they feel the authenticity like oozing out of it. And I think they're hungry for it, to be honest, because I think so much of the world is pretense. You know, we only post certain kinds of pictures on Instagram and Facebook because it makes us look a certain way. You know, everything is being filtered, and I wasn't filtering myself at all. So yeah, I had a lot of that. I mean, when I first started writing again, this was before Cardi B came out. So, and everybody was telling me not to tell my story, that it wasn't sexy, that it wasn't, you know, it was too sad, that it was, you know, it seemed gimmicky. And I thought, my life is a gimmick? You're telling me that the things that I lived in my life for so many years are a gimmick? How insulting, right? So then, you know, I had a little bit of fear in coming out with my story. So I didn't. I took time, and I still didn't release any music. And I was trying to find another avenue, but with still being authentic. And then Cardi B came out and she blew up, and everybody was like, oh my God, I love her. And I think also like her story isn't quite as sad as mine, you know, because I was coerced into that industry, and there was a lot of abuse, and so it's a little bit of a sadder story and maybe a harder story to stomach. But I was really happy that she was finally giving a face and dimensions to sex workers, because often we were just those faceless, nameless women twerking in music videos. And you know, people often, when they go to strip clubs or they hire a prostitute or whatever the case is, or they watch porn, they don't think of these women as people with families or children or mothers or, you know, problems. And so anyway, I was really happy that she came out. And then everybody told me again not to tell my story, because they were like, oh, well, it's already been told. There's already a stripper that's out there as a singer. And I thought,
God.
Are you kidding me? So I'm the same person as Cardi B now? That's like what we're saying now. So it's like I can't win, you know?
Yeah. But you know what? I find that you do a fantastic job on your album in really addressing a lot of this, because I think that's the challenge. And, you know, when you think about sex work in general, I think the piece that goes missing, and I think you addressed it even throughout this, is the fact that a lot of these individuals that do take up this profession, number one, there's situations like yours where they're being coerced into it by an abuser, but there's also like sex workers that have to make that money to make other things happen, right? Like, I still remember being in university and hearing about girls that, you know, were stripping on the weekends at the Hamilton Strip Club, but because they needed the money for tuition, like they needed the money for med school, like it was a way for them to be closer to their dreams, and it was a way for them to be able to move forward. And again, like, you can't hate on that, right? And even now, as we're kind of, you know, as we're dealing with this COVID-19 stuff, like one of the articles I read is that sex work in Europe has seen a large decrease, and it's tough because some people make a living off that, and they need it to make ends meet. And I think that's always been, and I'm glad you touched on that when it comes to sort of the stigma around sex work and how it's being perceived, is there's that extra layer or layers that people don't see. And that is the abuse side, but also the straight hustling side, where people honestly need the cash.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, I mean, the thing is that that industry is quite exploitative, but it can also be very empowering for women who do decide to do it on their own. You know, when I went
Yeah.
dancing to fund my album, it was definitely a reclaiming of that space, and I did feel powerful on certain days, you know. Um, I think that, you know, the thing is that sex work has its place in the world. There isn't nothing in life is black and white. And often we put this like thing on it that it's like such a sad thing and there's so much exploitation and so it should just stop. But that's not the case because I mean we can look at a lot of industries that are very similar. And like I said with the music industry, when I was trying to get into the music industry, there were times when I thought to myself, man, I had more power when I was in the strip club. I want to like jump back into my glass slippers and get on that pole because like this music industry is freaking me out. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because like, you know, I'd go to a club, let's say, to dance, to strip, and I would talk to the manager and they would like maybe have me do a song on the pole as an audition, or they'd even just ask me to do a spin for them, see how I looked, see my personality, and they would let me work. I wouldn't have to suck anyone's, you know, thing. I wouldn't have to, you know, do anything. I would literally just get to work and have a job. And in the music industry, it wasn't as clean cut. It was like everybody's trying to slither their way into like somehow sleeping with you if you want to get anything done. There's no like application process. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not based on how what your credentials are or like how great of an artist you are or anything. It's really and so it's a very scary world. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to taint it all bad and then not have music anymore? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of silly. So as you know, tough as the sex industry is, it's not all bad. And I don't want to paint it as that. I think it's very important that sex workers have pride in their job and that they can feel like they are a contributing part of society. I think women should be able to put on their resume that they've done that kind of work because the kinds of things that you learn, like I was basically a therapist to people. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had a guy who said to me that had he not met me that night, he was going to commit suicide.
Oh
You know
wow.
what I mean? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of stories that I could tell you along those lines. Most of the time, I would get paid for people to just talk to me. So I think that you know, I don't want to taint that world as a bad world because it isn't all bad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think your album does a great job in addressing that, and that's, you know, the one thing I'll say, Story, and let me know if this is correct, but it sounds like before we all kind of got into lockdown mode because of COVID-19, that you've been having a bit of a breakout 2020 year. You know, you talk about the album coming out, Chapter 3, The Come Up, which came out, I believe, in February. We talk about your Juno nomination. You just embarked on a US tour. Am I correct?
Yep.
Like you had a lot of momentum, and it sounds like the first part of 2020 has been very rewarding. And then all of a sudden, we're all stuck inside now because of the coronavirus. I'm curious, what have you been doing since we've been in lockdown mode? And what advice could you give to other artists? Because I've noticed there has been, this week's especially, a lot of concern about the well-being of a lot of our artists or a lot of our creative economy that really focuses on gigs and performances as a way to pay the bills, but with those now not being in demand because it's just pure safety for the community, you know, how else can some of these artists make ends meet?
Well, I'm struggling with that. I'm currently unemployed as well. So, and yeah, I mean, it was very devastating for me to have all this stuff cancel at such a pivotal time in my career. I was finally, like, it felt like I'd been pushing this boulder up a mountain that wasn't budging for years. You understand? Like, it wasn't even moving. And I finally got it to move like 2 inches where I was like, okay, I can, it wasn't rolling, but it was like, I can feel like I'm gonna get this to roll now,
Yeah.
a brick wall, just like it got lodged somewhere again. That's how it felt, because I was just about to get on the plane to go to the Junos. I had just, literally the day before the Junos got canceled, I had just secured a booking agent with an amazing agency. I was so excited to start doing festivals, and I'd just gotten off tour and, did a show at Soho House. I had the Canadian press do a national article about me. Like, it was just like things were just going, and then all of a sudden, bam. And I think a lot of people are feeling that, obviously. So I think the thing is like, I always believe that we choose our narrative, and we can decide whether this is a terrible time for us or a positive time, like a time of transformation. And that's what I'm choosing to focus it as. So what can we focus on to better our lives? How can we have gratitude? I have a gratitude journal. I suggest that people do this. I write 3 things that I write every morning that I'm grateful for, and 3 things every night that I'm grateful for. 3 things I learned in my day, and 3 wins in my day. And it's been, I do that now for the past 3 years. Every single day, and it's been very helpful. So that's one thing, to be just grateful for the things that we do have, especially if you have your health is the most important. And then I would say that, our world has constantly been in this place of like hustle and work, and like we have to outwork each other, and and I don't always think that that's the healthiest thing. So I think right now that the world is silent and it's not moving, and it's actually really great for the environment,
It is. It truly is. That's I think a piece that people are not seeing is, hey, there's less cars on the road, there's less congestion. People are also, technically, if you're indoors and you're kind of relying on the grocery shopping that you did probably previous to this, you're probably not spending as much money as you would, if you were to go out to dinner or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of underlying positives that, unfortunately, obviously, there's a big negative that we're all facing, but there are some positives in this situation.
Exactly. And then we can choose to focus on those things instead. And I think that's the key, and to also remember that nothing is permanent, because everything has a cycle, everything has a beginning, everything has an end, and it's fluid. Our lives are ever changing. And there was a time in my life for years that I didn't think I would get out of an abusive relationship, and I did. And then there was a time when I didn't think that I would heal from that abusive relationship, and I did. And that's the thing, and that's how all of life is. You never can see the outcome. We're not God, we don't have like vision of everything of what's to come. But if we decide to stay in a positive place, then it is more than likely that we will see a more positive outcome on the other side. So I'm personally working on stuff online. I'm taking this time to, get my website done up, maybe get my merch up there soon so people can buy some stuff. I'm also having a live streaming concert next Saturday on March 28th at 9:00, and people will be able to tune in on Facebook Live, and I might be able to get it on a few other streaming platforms. I'm just looking into it right now. I might be able to stream a couple at the same time. So and I'm also, I'm still speaking to my therapist over Skype, and I'm still working on my mental health. And she recommended a book to me, and I haven't had time to read a book in quite a while. So it's going to be nice to be able to read and to meditate more. I've been exercising more from inside my house. I do like these HIIT, high intensity interval training workouts from this YouTube channel. I follow this girl, Christine Salas. Like, I love her. Anyways,
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I think that we all need to just focus on ourselves and our families and the things that we have right now. I think that's probably the best use of our time.
So would love to get your theory on how the entertainment industry, or how the arts and culture community in Canada, or actually you currently live in Toronto, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, or how the arts and culture community in Toronto is going to look after we go back to normal to our normal means of life, hopefully very soon.
Well, I hope, one, that it will create more of a desire from people to connect with more authentic artists and not just what is being sold to them in the larger media of, like, radio and all that stuff, because they'll have an opportunity to sieve through these amazing indie artists online, and discover them, because oftentimes we don't have a lot of time in our day to find these like hidden gems. We're always like on the go, and so we just kind of consume whatever is being given to us first. But maybe this will give people time to discover their favorite indie artists and start supporting them, and that these indie artists will leverage that and put up their Patreon pages or Kickstarters or whatever, and find how to utilize these online platforms to their benefit. I don't think that there will ever be a time that live in-person concerts will not be valuable, because I think that there's a dimension in that energy of like in-person thing that can't be replicated. I can attest to that in all my concerts. I've had so many people tell me that I'm like 100 times better live than I am on recording, and they're
Totally, for sure.
Yeah, and they're just like, I'm like goosebumps and crying the whole show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that nothing can replicate that, and I think that is a definite thing that I think for myself is a strong suit that I have. But having these online streaming concerts, the thing that's super cool about it is that you can have your, fans that are in India and Singapore and, US and Italy all join you at the same time. They don't have to fly out. You don't have to be in their country. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. And I'm someone that loves a great live show. And again, I do, once this all settles down, I do want to come to one of your shows, because I'm sure it's great, especially with some of the clips I have seen online.
Aww.
But it's also it's interesting, because I find that when this slows down, like when we start getting back to normal life, I also think there's going to be a lot of hesitation for a lot of people to resume again. There's probably going to be a period where there's going to be a little bit of fear still existing, or people are going to be extra cautious. But what I think is great is, similar to the point that you made, is, again, there could be this movement around more online concerts or more online interactions or more of these abilities to connect with your audience all across the world, and especially in areas that you may not be able to go to a Singapore on tour, but again, you're still bringing a somewhat close enough experience to them where they can still take in what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And I'm really hoping, like, I see, just as you said, a trajectory of more indie artists realizing what they have online and how they can turn that maybe 1,000 or 2,000 true fans that they have into a sustainable income. Maybe they're not, touring the world and a huge, mainstream artist, but they're able to sustain a living through these online platforms. I have my clay animation that's coming out on Tuesday.
Yeah, that looks awesome, by the way. It really gave me honestly, it reminded me of like the Christmas classics of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or even like looking at what Robot Chicken used to do. Like the claymation is awesome, or even like Tim Burton claymation. Like I really dug the visuals that you posted up on your Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's coming out on Tuesday. I wrote, directed it, produced it, animated it myself with two of my friends who also had never done film or anything before. But the reason I brought it up, other than that people should check it out because it's going to be dope, but, is that we're trying to secure with my publicist somebody to premiere it, and it's been very difficult because everybody is talking about COVID, so nobody wants to pick it up. And I said, this is when we need this stuff the most.
Exactly.
This is when people need the art. They don't need more COVID. It's everywhere. It's in every conversation. It's on every platform. And yes, we need to be aware, but at the same time, we also need some stuff that's not going to give us nightmares. You know, my brother is waking up every night and telling me that he's having nightmares. And I said, because you're consuming too much of this fear-based news. Like, yes, get your piece of information, be cautious, but then put it away and focus on some other stuff. And that's why I say gratitude, meditation, yoga, you know, things like that, because art, consume some art that's beautiful, that makes you think about other things, because there's other things in the world other than COVID. You know, life is still happening.
Yeah, and tell them to stop watching Contagion on Netflix because it's still
sure.
like one of the top trending movies on Netflix. Oh man, but I'm glad. Your message of positivity is definitely needed right now, Story. So thanks again for coming on New Theory Radio. Really appreciate it. Feel free to plug where people can listen to Chapter 3 that come up as well. Again, give people the details on your live show. Once we get things in order again, we're gonna have to definitely bring you back in studio and get you to comment on some of the things that are taking place from a current affairs, pop culture, everyday life standpoint. But I think you did that for the most parts. But let us know how we can connect with you.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, people can go to my website at www.storymusic. That's story with 2 R's, music.com, and they can sign up to my email list. That's probably the best way to stay up to date currently because you know, with Instagram and Facebook, there's algorithms, and sometimes you won't see my posts, and then you'll miss out on maybe a show, like a last minute show or something. Otherwise, all my socials, definitely follow me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. I'm primarily on Instagram, I would say, and Story with 2 R's, music again. And then they can find all of my music on all the streaming platforms. My YouTube channel is Story with 2 R's, my Spotify, my Apple Music, Google Play, SoundCloud, whatever you listen to, you can find my album on there.
Big thanks to Story for joining us here on New Theory Radio. And a big thank you to all of you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. It is interesting times that we're currently living in, but we here at New Theory Radio will continue to develop new content and we'll continue to theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. But I think we're also going to use this as a platform to really showcase different individuals and really profile what the community is up to during these times. If you want to connect with me, it's at @Nanwa on Twitter, at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. If you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it's at New Theory Radio across all platforms. Please connect with our station at Saga 960 AM for all the up-to-date information on all of our programming. And special shout-outs to our wonderful photographer at colorblindphotography_, who was on the show earlier, as well as our good friends Nataleigh Ballantyne and Shimmy Coco Puffs. And a big thank you to Dusty Loops for producing our theme song. That's a wrap for this week's episode. Keep social distancing. Keep staying at home. We are all going to get through this together, and you will hear all of us next time. Peace.